We've come to the last phase of today's session. We have a high-powered panel discussion on empowering choices with our esteemed panelists. Mr. Rajan Matthews, Mr. Tim Zani, Mr. Deepak Goyal. I would request everybody to please join us on the stage. The session will be moderated by Mr. Sanjay Kapoor. Mr. Rajan Matthews, Director General, Cellulose Operators Association of India, India's largest communication industry association. Rajan specializes in international operations, startup ventures, turnarounds, mergers and acquisitions, and venture financing. Mr. Tim Zani, US technology leader for KPMG and global head of technology. Tim plays a key relationship role for the firm's largest global technology accounts. Tim's responsibilities include developing marketplace strategies and leading the growth and success of firm's global technology industry. Mr. Deepak Goyal, Chief Operating Officer, Carix Mobile. Deepak, with his IT and telecom industry experience, coupled with entrepreneurial talent, has been instrumental in anticipating technology, market trends, and driving growth and establishing Carix as a market leader. Our moderator for the session is Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, an experienced global leader in telecom and allied industries. Sanjay is currently the non-executive director at Saudi Telecom Company, director at Industars Limited, also director at Bennett Coleman and Company. With over 2 decades of telecom experience, he was the erstwhile CEO of Bharti Airtel Limited and has played an active role in industry forums like CII, COAI, and NASCOM. Over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you. We will keep this a bit focused and really good stuff that we've been hearing since morning. I'm personally delighted to be associated with immense innovative transformation on how we deal with the Do Not Disturb registry that we really struggled with. And what we are trying to do in this panel today is to just visit some of the big hurdles we faced and how we are trying to deal with them, and this time why will we get them right, and finally where else can we deploy what we are trying to do. So just to give a backdrop, no matter what, even today messaging seems to be the most preferred way of communication, at least for the small and medium enterprises globally. And that is because 90% of the messages that get sent to somebody actually get opened. And that's a great window for anybody to communicate. If there's a communication which doesn't get opened, it becomes really difficult and it's not targeted. So I think that's one big advantage that's there. And the very fact that there are 20 billion A2P messages and globally, it runs into trillions, 1.7, going up to 2.7 by 22. That's a great opportunity that sits. On one side, we have all the marketeers who want to make the best use of this. On the other side, there's a consumer, who really, and I as a consumer, really get nauseated when it comes to being disturbed while roaming, while in a meeting. And the people who call you do not even acknowledge the fact that they have not scrubbed the lists that they are violating to get in touch with you. And you really feel very bad at that time. With all that, the bigger problem that has led to everybody's anxiety is actually all about spam, fraud, phishing, privacy breaches, and that have taken serious alarming positions. I have a case to share here with you. My own father-in-law got a message from somebody to which he responded, or he was forced to respond. And by the time the old man realized what he had done, his bank account was clearly swept out. It was brought to zero, right? And when we went to the banks were a little clandestine about it, but the problem was pervasive. They had number of cases of this nature. They also knew who were the people behind this and where they were, but they could not nab them. And this is a real serious issue that is there in all markets of the world. The spammers could be sitting in Africa, they could be sitting in India, they could be sitting in Bangladesh, they could be sitting any part of the world. And that's what we are talking about. With that backdrop in hand, let's get on to today's discussion. And Rajan, let me start with you. We've seen the D&D not really working pretty well. This time we have a blockchain-based solution. The regulatory consultation has been deep-rooted. So why do you think this time we have a better chance, or are you still apprehensive about what we are doing?
So thanks, Sanjay. Congratulations to Tangla and to Troy. I think we're moving forward. And I think the point that you raise is a good one in terms of saying we've been trying so many things in the last 15 plus years in terms of trying to address this. I think the regulator itself has had about 5 or 6 bites at the apple, and so we are here trying this new thing. So I think we have to try and push the envelope in terms of trying new methodologies. And so kudos to the Troy in trying blockchain as a methodology for this. So I think that's a good thing. So asking ourselves, why hasn't it succeeded in our past bites? One, I think, is the fact, if you look at the India context, the issue of unregistered telemarketers. You know, if you have your sandlot and you say, these are the rules to play here, and the guys who choose not to play are in the periphery, I think that causes a big problem. And I think this is one area we have to address. So blockchain, great, let's try it, let's move forward. The second thing you're saying is that if you don't have these telemarketers who are supposed to register, how then do you enforce? So enforcement becomes a significant issue. And I think where we are really trying to fix this problem is through the UIDI process, Aadhaar. Today, you can get a SIM card, as you well know, in the industry fairly easily. And one of the things that the industry struggles with is this issue of identity. So unfortunately, because of the Supreme Court ruling, we're now struggling to get Aadhaar back in. And this is going to be a successful link criteria if we're going to make it work. And then, of course, the final thing is enforcement. How do you really go after the guys who are abusing the system in spite of all of these safeguards and make sure that you can catch the right person and enforce?
Rajan, a follow-up from here, and anything that you implement for operators always has a cost equation to it, and the rewards that they are going to benefit with, and the customers are going to benefit with, versus the costs that are associated with it. And how do you see this time around? Do you see the cost and reward disparity, or you think this has to be done, and there is a cost equation that will be addressed?
I think this has to get done. I don't see customers putting up with this for very long, especially as we get into the transaction where banking is now becoming online, especially in places like India. As you rightly pointed out, this is becoming a critical issue. We have to deal with this. And so again, when we look to say, look, what are the parameters that we want to put in place vis-a-vis cost? Yes, we've looked at the cost. We said if you look at an all-in cost, it's going to cost us about 100 crores plus. But what is different and unique in the way that this has been structured is opportunities among operators when we design the COP, what is called the operating procedures, to charge one another almost like interconnect fees. So there's built in, through the regulatory mechanism, opportunities for revenue among the operators as we kind of mask the information, so critical ID information doesn't go, but we exchange data, and in this exchange process, as we do this, is there opportunities to earn even small amounts, but you're talking about these large volumes. So I think there's a built-in mechanism, hopefully, which offsets. So one, we have to go down this route. Yes, it's costly, but true, let's try it. And three, there are built-in, four, there are built-in mechanisms that perhaps offset those costs.
Thanks. Let's take this conversation to Tim, who's got a more global experience around all this. And Tim, my colleagues from Tanla did share that, there are surveys which are pointing out that the whole world is getting impacted by these spams. And, we know that there are different regulations in different parts of the world. So first, if you can throw some light on what some other parts of the world are doing and how they are dealing with this menace. On the other side, the world's also on the other extreme talking about a GDPR. How do we, sift between the two, and, what's your opinion on what's going on?
Yeah. Well, let me first add my congratulations to Uday and the team at Tanla. What a terrific solution. When I think about technology, you think about technology not just as a study and an application of technical means, but you have to think about technology and its impact on life and society and the environment. and you look at this solution and you look at the profound effect that it's going to have on life, society, and the environment for the people that it's going to be touching. And I think that's just terrific. I mean, people have the right to enjoy life and be left alone. And this certainly does that. So congratulations to your team. Absolutely fantastic. In terms of regulation in the world around privacy in general is a bit choppy. Pretty heavy regulation in the U.S., Western Europe, maybe a little less so, but still fairly strong in China, Australia, Japan, Brazil. But for the rest of the world, relatively moderate or limited regulation as it relates to privacy. We tend to see it in terms of a proactive measure that companies ought to be taking. When we get called in and are asked to help clients solve these privacy issues, the first question we ask is everybody on board? Is the board, the CEO, management, the business units, is everybody on board here to solve this problem? Because we've got to have a unanimous thinking across the entire organization. The organization then needs to be accountable. It needs to hold itself accountable for privacy, the right to enjoy life and be left alone. Hold yourself accountable. And then it gets complicated from there, because then you have to talk about how you deal with vendors. How do vendors use your information? You have to deal with cross-border data sharing. You have to deal with things like, well, if there's a breach in it, now I've got to notify folks, and I've got to be able to come out proactively. Those are things that we're being asked to help our clients solve. We're being asked to deal with fines and penalties and things of that nature that these regulatory regimes are placing upon companies. All things that are very difficult and complicated to do. But I think what it also allows companies to do in these regulatory situations, it allows them to look at the customer, to look at their customer in a different light and think about the customer experience that this regulation creates. And of course, that leads to back offices and transformation of IT systems and things of that nature. But there's a lot to deal with here in regulation. Maybe the last thing that I'll add that I see, you hear a lot in the news about the big technology companies and how they ought to be regulated and how their information ought to be stored and remain private, and what they should be sharing or not sharing and so forth. And I think we all agree that that's probably a pretty good idea. But what's happening when you place heavy regulation on big companies is you create a deeper moat that these companies operate in. They become stronger because, for the most part, their size and strength are the only ones that can deal with the type of regulations that are coming down. So we're seeing big tech companies really prepare themselves for the privacy and security conversations that are happening around the world. There's a lot of headlines that are being grabbed, but they're well prepared to deal with this.
And what about the GDPR? You think countries like India and the developing world have the capability of dealing with that extreme?
I do. I think that there's an opportunity for every type of regulation to be done in a thoughtful and meaningful way. It won't be perfect when it's first implemented, no matter where it's implemented, but it'll come to the right conclusion when you get everybody, like this solution with Tanla. You get everybody working together. You get the regulator, the enterprise, the consumers, and you get everybody working together. You come to the right answer.
Yeah, I think a leading question from here, Tim, is on one side, Neil in his keynote said that probably telecom is one of the most potent industries to adopt technologies like blockchain because there are lesser agreements to be signed. Their business models are pretty pervasive and they're alike, and therefore to unite them and to create an ecosystem is much easier. But on the other side, when we think about blockchain, we only think about cryptocurrency. Really, we have not had any great use cases. So what's your view on it, and how does the world at large and the larger ecosystem and peripheries of telecom industry and technology industries benefit from this technology and the use cases?
Yeah, it's a great question today, and I actually didn't time this, but I'm actually releasing a paper today on blockchain for technology, media, and telco clients. I don't think we could have planned that, but if anybody's interested in that paper, just link in with me or give me a business card afterwards, and I'll provide you the paper. In that paper, we talk about what's going on with blockchain around the world. There's a lot of investment going into it. From a venture capital perspective, almost $3 billion was invested in blockchain this year. We're expected as a society to be spending over $11 billion by 2022 on blockchain solutions, and the amount of value that it's expected to create, $176 billion of value by 2025. So an incredible technology. I think the best way to understand it is to think about these use cases, and I thought Neil did a terrific job in going through some of those. He actually alluded to one of the solutions that we worked on for Singapore Airlines, and Singapore Airlines came to us, and they had an issue. And I'm simplifying here. They had an issue with their airline miles being used by their consumers. As those miles accumulate in everyone's accounts, they are a liability for that organization to provide flights to their customers. And so we helped them think through the business issue, and we developed a consumer blockchain application so that on everybody's phone, there's an app, and you can go out to a whole variety of vendors in Singapore and use your airline miles to purchase things such as gasoline. And all the transactions related to the use of those miles, the payment of the vendor, the discount that the consumer gets, are all in a blockchain. So at the time when it was developed, it was the largest consumer-based application of blockchain in the world. And I think examples like that, and there are a lot of great examples. Again, Neil was showing some good ones. We see a lot in payments. We see them in tax compliance at KPMG. So a lot of different ones that are starting to really build some momentum around the blockchain. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I think all of you will agree with me that no matter which forum we talk about, the moment you discuss the deployment of technology, we ramp up to scale very quickly. The numbers start turning into billions of dollars, no matter which discussion we talk about. I think the next challenge with the world is to manage the complexity of the change rather than the scale of the change. The scale, pretty well, I think the whole world has learned to tame. But I think complexity is what the next challenge ahead is. Now let's come to Deepak, because at the end of the day, any regulation, any policy is not there to kill the business. We are not here to kill the business of communication. We are here to grow the business of communication, but bring in the semblance in doing that business and kill that unorderly regime which exists. So Deepak, if I was a telemarketer and I read about this implementation, my first reaction will be, oh man, my business is gone. I'm going to lose a lot of volumes. Am I going to be as profitable? So what do you think? How's the industry going to benefit? Are the marketeers, telemarketers, and the enterprises going to benefit?
Okay, so as far the industry goes, I would say there are 5 stakeholders. There's a regulator, there's enterprise customers, there are end customers, mobile users who get the messages, there's telemarketers and operators who carry these messages to the end customer. So when you come to the regulator, regulator done the job, they send a very strong message that they care about consumers, they care about, they want to protect Indian consumers with spam and fraudulent messages, right? And this message has gone across the world. So it's a very, very strong thing, I would say, right? Then, who are the beneficiaries out of it? I would say enterprise customers and the end consumers are the beneficiaries out of it, right? Where they immediately benefit a lot. I would come to that. Telemarketers and access providers, definitely there's some pain in the beginning, but I would say from medium to long term, there's going to be a lot of benefits. So when I come to end customers, yes, if implemented well, which I'm sure it would, there's going to be zero spam. So this regulation, this platform, which is developed by Tanla, ensure there's going to be zero spam going forward. So, consumers like you and me, who are on D&D, of course, and get all kind of messages would be protected. So it's great. For enterprise customers, it's great too, right? Because if you see, though we say that 90% of the messages are read, but I would say when we go as a telemarketer and go and sit with our enterprise customers, devise solutions. So the challenge always is ROI. They are investing in a medium, they're investing in a channel, and what they're going to get out of it. And all kind of questions keep coming. Oh, is it the right channel for us, and whatnot. And I would say that now, with this regulation coming in place, the enterprises would be sending these messages to the end consumers. There's a lot of, if you look at from the enterprise customer point of view, today, if SDFC Bank has to send let's say, a promotional message to its customers who have opted for it, there would be a header, the sender ID would be some numeric number, okay, and you get all kind of messages with numeric number as sender IDs, right? You will not even care about the message. Going forward basis, you'll get a message from SDFC Bank, right? So that's a major thing for our enterprise customer, because you get the brand which is getting published, right? When you send a message, and the consumer knows from where I'm getting the message. He opens it, and if required, make an action on that, right? Also, it prevents the clutter in your message box. Right? You're getting relevant messages, okay, whom you opted for. Enterprise knows you opted for these messages, and I'm sending to the right audience. So it stops carpet bombing, right? When it comes to telemarketer, so you're right. When 6 months back, this regulation came, and we were like, so first reaction was, oh, how the hell they're going to get implement this?
Doomsday.
Right? And but Tanla made it possible. So, over the period of last 6 months, we've been thinking about it. We've been absorbing it, and we think more and more. And now, and we are we think as telemarketers, as I would say that it is a very good step, and it is going to benefit us a lot in going forward basis. How? That as Dr. Sharma said some time back, that people send all kind of messages using SIM cards, SIM farming is on in India, and all kind of fraudulent message going on, and so all that would stop, right? And at Carix, we deal with more than 1,500 enterprise customers in India, and we have some of the top brands as our customers, and that is going to stay. That business is going to stay. At the entire overall ecosystem is going to get cleaner and much better. So it's good for it's good for us, for access providers, for operators. So I think they used to get a lot of beating from the regulator. That would stop. That would come down. Their penalties would come down. and I would say it becomes zero, on going forward basis. So I think this is good for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, zero will take a while is my own personal guess because habits take time to change. I think a quick follow-up on this one is that for Rajan, it was cost and reward. For you, it's effort and reward. So do you think the enterprise are willing to put the effort that is required to make it successful?
Well, we have met many enterprise customers. We interviewed them. We made them understand about this new regulation. That's what we've been doing for the last couple of months. And they are willing to, right? They are supporting it, and they are willing to make a change. Definitely, they rely on us in a big way. And telemarketers, we need to ensure that overall process is very smooth for them. And we take all the pain for them and ensure that their communication carries on the way it is.
Excellent. In the interest of time, I'll quickly wind off this discussion by having some concluding remarks. And Rajan, let's begin with you once again. This requires an operability and for operators to come together and one, comply with the regulation in letter, and other is comply with the transformation in spirit, right? How committed do you think the industry is today? Because you've been debating with the government, you've been talking about, can you postpone it a little more? And now you've reached a stage where 28th of February is the deadline, on 1st of March you go live. So, in your concluding remarks, where are we today? And are we going to see the new transformation really kicking in from first?
So, like any other thing, we've got to take it out on a road test. So we'll have to see when this thing gets on the road what actual performance is all about. Because again, as you rightly pointed out, 10 billion transactions a month, that is phenomenal. So we'll have to kick the tires and see stability and accessibility. So I think that's something that we have to try, because again, we've never tried blockchain before, as was rightly pointed out. So we'll have to see how this works. So where are we today? I think all of the major operators, 3 of them, have all signed commercial arrangements with the vendors, and I think that's a good step. So going forward, one of the challenges that we have faced is getting the ecosystem aggregators and the folks who are actually sending the messages and the banks, all of them agreeing to the COP, the Common Operating Procedures, because they've got to buy in and they've got to be able to update these ledgers as well. So I think that's where this is going on. Obviously getting customers on the do not disturb. I mean, we have 7 categories and time of day and hour and everything else. The previous challenge, Sanjay, was only 30% of the total population actually registered. So you got the 70% that's out there, that's kind of an open sieve, if you will. So we've got to educate the customer, saying, hey, you got a real Ferrari here, don't drive it like you're driving your grandmother's Oldsmobile or whatever. No, smarts are not your Oldsmobile, but so that's going to be part of it, educating the consumer to take part in this really very powerful engine. And I think that's going to be it. And then, as I pointed out, this issue of the unregistered telemarketers trying to scam the system, because again, the risk rewards, talk about risk rewards for these guys. They're enormous. I mean, so unless we really address and de-incentivize the commercial payoff for these folks, we're going to not get to that zero perspective. And so we're going to have to look at that as we roll this. How are we going to really enforce and go after these guys who are on the periphery, who come in? And I think those will be the proof of the pudding as we go forward. But I think we've conceptually addressed all the right issues, adopted the right technology in our mind. Let's take it out for a spin. Hopefully we get to where we want to.
Great, and you said 3 operators, there's still 4, so I don't know which one are you writing off in your mind. I hope all 4 of them survive. To you, Tim, we know that, at the end, cybersecurity will be an issue with this technology or anything that deals with such distributed databases. So what's your advice to all the operators while they're implementing on the cybersecurity piece? How should they deal with it? Because that's a big risk that they carry no matter which technology they implement.
Yeah, it's a great question, incredibly timely, and certainly everybody's dealing with cybersecurity today. Look, there's always going to be pain when you have a regulation is viewed as a requirement. And as you said, you know, you have a lot of pain initially. You kind of reject it. It takes you a while to really digest what it is. But I think if you take the opportunity to think about your customers and how that regulation can impact your customers in an incredibly positive way, then I think you can build the systems, you can build the processes, you can build the protocols around that to make it a truly interesting, unique, and better experience for your customers. And that's where everybody coming together provides a much better opportunity for that to occur.
Excellent. Deepak, last one from you. And very simplistically, we know the regulations there. Is there anything that you wish was a part of this regulation which could enhance the business for the enterprise customers? Because at the end of the day, your interest will be to increase the business in the market as well.
So it's a good thing that the regulators left, right, before you answer the question.
Well, I would say, had we given some more time to I think it's been 6 months been given. I think it's too short, and it's been at least for a year. So then things would have been better. And I would like to say one more thing here. We all are familiar with the surgical strikes in India, right? So one happened, I think, today morning. So I would say that this is a surgical strike on spam, which TRAI has done, right? It's a great step. And as telemarketers, as industry, I would say that we all actually looking for waiting for it to happen. Though it came with a very stringent kind of very stringent guidelines and all that, very tough to implement, painful. But I think it's going to be good for the ecosystem.
Thank you. And with that, we bring an end to this session. My personal congratulations to Uday and the Tanla team and to the industry for having taken upon themselves a new benchmark that they will set for the rest of the world. So congratulations.
Thank you for the wonderful discussion, Sanjay and the panel. The insights from Rajan, Tim, and Deepak have been really useful for the audience and have left us with more thoughts around the new technology aspects and the regulation that we just discussed. Thank you, everyone, for being a wonderful audience. I request everyone to collect their copy of Thought Leadership from the registration area, and please join us for lunch now. Thank you.